Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Davis and I am with CBS ArcSafe. I'd like to welcome you to our monthly webinar. Today we're going to cover a cross-section of some Cutler Hammer and Eaton Cutler Hammer products on what we can do for remote switching and one remote racking item. If you have questions, you'll be able to ask those through the webinar. If we have a slight internet interruption or anything and your question doesn't get asked, don't be afraid to ask it a second time. We've had a little bit of weather in Texas, so we've seen just a couple issues once in a while, so please bear with us and be patient with us. The first product we're going to cover today is one for the Pringle switch with the shunt trip. Now, the Pringle switch comes in like an old version where you got a black handle with a red button up at the top. You've got some different shaped handles and other stuff. Don't be afraid to send us pictures at info@cbsarcsafe.com if you got questions about your version of the Pringle switch. Eaton bought up the Pringle switch a few years back. We've got our RSA over here in the 135 version right here. This is for the QA and CBC versions. And so we've got this hooked up right here, and it's set up in an outdoor piece of switchgear. The humorous thing, if you were to look at the switchgear, it actually says Siemens on it, but Siemens bought the switch from Cutler Hammer to put it in their system. So we're going to turn on our RSO3 right here. We've got our system set up for the number of cycles. Now the thing to understand is this is the one with the shunt trip. If you've got the one which is just straight up and closed, it has a different angle of travel, and that's one of our different RSAs like the 135A or 135B, depending upon what version of the switches you have. So at this point we're simply going to push our charge close button one time. And let's see, or is it? Which is the, okay, there we go. And then to trip for the shunt trip. Now, I'm going to take this off right now, and I'll just show everybody what this looks on the back side. So just give me a second and bear with me. The Pringle switch and things like the bolt switch take a lot of torque, so we use alignments and things to make sure that things are going to set up properly. And this one actually goes in the small gap here to help it align. There we go. And this is what it looks on the back side. Okay, so we use 3 magnets and we use the edge of the switchgear to help it be able to set up and operate properly on the switchgear. Okay. The next one we're going to play with is the RSA-48. Now, something to talk about is this, and just to discuss. You'll say, Greg, I got a breaker that looks like this thing, and this is the Eaton Cutler Hammer Magnum DS breakers. The Magnum DS breakers, as best I can tell, started getting made and marketed in 1998. You can have an LK retrofit that is a Magnum DS breakers. It'll say LK800. It's a Magnum DS. If it looks like this, smells like this, it's a Magnum DS. So Eaton uses the Magnum DS for several retrofill breakers, and they'll change the label on it. So you can have a Magnum DS, a Magnum SB, and a Magnum MWN or Magnum NWI. You can have an IZM, I think it's IZM breaker. And the last two, the MWI and MWN and the IZM, are all IEC rated breakers, but they're still Magnum DS. Now, You can have a couple other things just to discuss this for real quick. You can have a network protector, a CM22. It uses the same racking operation, okay? And the face of it still looks like a Magnum DS. We would have to do a different type of RSA-48, which would attach to the cradle versus this, which attaches to the door. So we've done cradle-only RSA-48s. This one's made for closed door. So just if you have a variation of this, don't be afraid. Send us your pictures. We'll work to get you taken care of. Okay? So the RSA-48, just to discuss, we use 2 magnets. These rails on the side are adjustable, so if your door handle's in this place or we need to move it for some reason, we can. It uses a water jetted handle that's going to go right on here. We've got our charge motor over here, and we've got our close and trip system over here. This requires the RSO 3D to operate, so I'm going to get this hooked up now for us. You have the 3-pin and the 4-pin assemblies. The 4-pin has a keyway, and this has a different setup. So we try to make this so this goes on fairly easy for anybody. And if you got questions, again, don't be afraid to slow me down and ask questions at any time. So the breaker normally takes 5 strokes, but the Eaton literature will tell you it may take up to 7. So one of the things to notice is that when you're using the RSA-48, if you have a breaker that takes more than 5, what you do is reset the system to a single stroke and wait to see that the charging spring actually does charge. And then you'd have to make a note for that cubicle and that breaker that, well, I've got these first 8 breakers that take 5, but this last one over here takes 7. And that would be in the normal range according to the Eaton Cutler Hammer literature. So just understand that most of them are going to do it at 5, but you may have some outliers that may take a few more strokes, and you'll have to make a note for those particular breakers. All right, so we've got our cycle set at 5, and our T1 and our T2s are set also. So if we hit the charge close button now, we're going to charge the spring. Now, remember also that we're doing this for a demonstration right now, but always read your arc flash labels and walk that distance off to operate this gear, okay? So while you see me standing here, and I've seen plenty of people like to say, if you're dealing with dead switchgear and doing a demonstration, that's great. But always respect that arc flash hazard boundary and get that distance. So now we're going to press the close button, our trip button, and that's the operation of the RSA-48. So I'm going to take that off of there now, and we're going to use our RS3 MDS-R1 for racking this breaker in and out now. So if you got questions about the MDS or the Magnum series of breakers or any of this stuff that I just rattled off, and I understand sometimes this is like drinking through a fire hose, don't be afraid to slow down. You can send Ben a question now online while I work to take this off, and we'll work to answer any questions you got. This is sort of like Lego for kids in terms of it uses a simple IGUS connector here. We take the handle off right here. Oh, come on, get that off. The other way? Yeah, it'll stay on. I'll get it off afterwards. All right, so we're going to push our 2 magnets in. Grab the RSA and pull it off. This is again what the RSA-48 looks like on the back side. Okay. All right. The next thing we're going to deal with is the MDSR1. This is the remote racking system. Normally, there's a 50-foot cable for remote control for this. You're going to be able to keep an eye through the camera on the position here that's there. So I'll work to show that as we go through this. All right. Okay, this is the end that's going to hook up. And I've got to turn it right side up here. So this is going to go into the racking port. This is going to help align it. And this little hook right here on the side is going to hold it in place. It's going to go right through the lockout tagout area right here. And now it's locked in and it's seated to the proper depth. Okay. In the box down here, we've got our control cable, and I'm going to tilt this down so you all can see all the stuff that's inside of here real quick. So I'm going to turn it on for power right here. You're going to see that it's operating in the DC mode right here. You've got an AC, low DC, and a low battery indicator right there. Okay. Now, we've got the system right here. The breaker's installed right now. The camera that you're going to see displayed here is located right up here. So we'll hold our enable button down. Okay. And we're going to hold our out button. Okay, now what the system just did is it fully racked the breaker out. It went to the end of the screw, and then it has a mode where it's going to go back a little over a turn to take the residual torque out of the system. We have that built into the system for the series like this for our DS breakers, for the RL breakers, and for this, the MDS breakers. And to put the breaker back in, we're going to do the exact opposite of what we just did. You want me to come closer to the camera so you can see the, say again? Okay. All right. So we're going to go hold the button down and we'll hold this in. Sorry. Okay, that's the process. Now, one of the things to note is this system is capable of racking all of the frame sizes from the 800 amp up to the 6300 amp IEC rated breakers. Domestically, we'd see the 4000, 5000 amp breakers. We do know some of our competition has problems doing anything above the 3200 amp breakers. So if you got those types of big double-ended substations and data centers, then this is the item that you're really going to want to deal with those things. Other stuff to note is if you're an international customer, okay, we would normally set this up for a 110, 120 VAC charging system. If you need to have like 220, 240, 50, 60 hertz, we can do that, but we need to know what your power outlets are and what you got for juice coming through the wall so we can get the proper configuration done down inside the box for you. Okay, the next item we've got is we're dealing with a safety switch. So we've seen plenty of these in data centers and other facilities where somebody's got to have this stuff switched on and switched off. And so this uses the RSA-1, which I think plenty of people are familiar with just turning things on, turning things off. It was the first RSA we made all the way back in 2009, 2008 time frame. And it still powers a lot of RSAs today. Okay, we're going to hook it up right here. We've done a lot of GE switches. We've done several Eaton switches. We've done a lot of the Siemens switches. So if you've got stuff where it's stainless steel enclosure or something like that, don't be afraid to contact us, because we've seen a lot of those at water purification plants also, and we've done things for those. So we're going to turn our system on. We're going to leave the AR off. Since we're in the off position, we're going to close it, and we'll just hold the button down for the duration of travel. We'll turn the RSO off, and we'll show how this actually mounts on the system so that everybody can get a look at the side and how it locates. Bear with me for just a second. So we'll take it off here. Okay, we're going to have it come off from the back here. Let's see. Even I have to play with things a little bit sometimes to get things to come on and come off. So, wait a second. Get them off. I got them both turned off. Let me see. Okay. There we go. So, with the side, this locates around the back of the switch. The switch handle goes inside of here. It takes just a couple seconds to get it on, and this way we can ensure that it's going to lock in properly and resist the torque as it goes up and goes down. Let me hand this one off to Ben. Okay. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the the CHL1. Now, one of the things I'm going to note is this. Before I put this on here and start to operate it, you're going to notice that this is spring-loaded to the up position. And that's just because this is a basic handle with no circuit breaker behind it, no mechanism. So each time we perform a close or open operation, it's always going to return to the up position. Now, this particular device is made for even operating a double bucket. So if you've got a handle here and a handle here, it's going to set up just fine. The only thing you may have to watch out for is if you have a lockout tagout on a left handle, you may have to remove it if you cannot properly locate the actuator onto the right one with that in place. So this system is our wireless version. It uses the Milwaukee M18 battery. So I recently had to go do training in Saudi Arabia, and I just got back from that last Saturday. The humorous part was we were doing training with this exact system over there, and because the battery's been sitting for 4 months, they were dead. So we plugged them into the substation. Always check your battery strength to see that at least you got a couple of these. This battery will charge from being practically dead to being good to go in about a half an hour. In about 15 minutes, you can go from a flashing red light to 3 bars. So if you haven't charged in a while, it does charge pretty fast on the Milwaukee chargers that are included in the system. So this is going to clip on right here, like this. The first thing we have to do is we're going to have to wake it up. And that gives power to this, and it'll tell signals looking for this. So we can hit our press down button here. We want to turn it on. So if we were turning it on, we just do that. And if we're turning it off, you have to hold it down for the duration of the operation. So if I only go like this or this, it's not going to do anything. You have to hold it down for the duration of the operation so that the switch handle can make the full distance travel. Okay, then you release this. You can put it back to sleep. Once you've done that, support it with your left hand. Take it off. Then you can take your battery off, just like that. And we can put it all back in the box at that point to make everything back as it's supposed to appear. This all comes included in the kit. If you can't handle the wireless version for some reason in the facility, we have a 30 or a 50-foot cord, and we can get a cord out to 100 feet if we need to. So we do have other options for that. So the wireless is what's our most popular right now, but again, if you can't handle wireless, we do have wired versions of this actuator. Okay. The next thing we've got is the Eaton Cutler Hammer R-frame. Now sometimes you're going to see this thing called Challenger. That's a licensed product that's manufactured. So the R-frame actually started out as a Westinghouse breaker. So you may see some older ones that are Westinghouse. The newer ones are going to say Cutler Hammer or Challenger or Eaton Cutler Hammer on them. So these things have been made for a long time. The frame size, this one, I think it runs 2,000 up to 3,000 amps. And so you may have varying amp sizes, but the breaker itself remains the same. So it's one of the stronger breakers. That's the reason you're going to see 2 actuators here to push this baby up and down. We see these usually like as a main on some motor control centers. So that's where you're going to find it being used a lot. Okay, now we've got this in the open position now. It does have the handle extension on it, which you do need for the RSA to operate. So if you don't have those, we can help you get a hold of those also. Let me get the RSA one turned on here so we can watch. We need AR off. We're going to turn our power on. And we're going to simply hold the close button down for the duration of the travel. Okay, and that's how it's going to operate going up and what it's going to appear like when we're going to go open. And that's the operation of the RSA-117G. Now, a couple things to note. This one's mounted in a standard type cubicle thing you might see. We have done these for open mounted breakers out at wind farms where they're on the low side of the transformer, and we have mounting brackets that'll go up on the top and the bottom of them, and that way you're able to still operate the RSA. The RSA will quickly mount with those 2 bracket mounts that are on the top and the bottom. So just because you may have a slight variation in this, don't be afraid to call us at 1-877-472-3389 or send us your pictures at info@cbsarcsafe.com. And again, here's what this one's going to look like on the back side. Okay? Now, the next thing we're moving to is one of the Eaton Cutler Hammer series medium voltage load break switches. We have done the let's see, the LIS, the line interrupter switch. We've done the WLI, and I think we've got a couple others in that family that we've done. So just because yours doesn't look exactly like this one today, don't be afraid to contact us and tell us what you got so that we can help you out. Because remember, sometimes somebody else may buy this switch, put a different front and cover on it, but it's still the same switch back behind the door. So that's one of the things to understand is that, you know, the XYZ company bought that same switch, put it in their cubicle, put the XYZ label on it, and it's still a Westinghouse Eaton Cutler Hammer switch. All right, this one's going to go up here. There we go. I'm going to move this over to this side for this operation so everybody can see everything together here. This should work better for you. Okay. We've got our switch for the Cutler Hammer MVS in the open position, so now we're going to close it. So we'll simply hold down our close button now for the duration of travel. And we're going to trip it. Turn off our RSO. And just to show you what this thing looks like when we get all done. So this has a spring-loaded system to help keep the bar in there as we go. We'll just pull that back out so we get it free from the switch. Okay. We'll take off our cable right here. I'm going to put my hands up here. All right. Okay. Okay, I see what I'm doing. Okay. There we go. So this is how this looks on the back side. If you look closely right here, we've got a little flange cut in here so that we can mount it across the back part right here so that everything sticks together. Oops, sorry for covering up my mic there, Brian. Sorry. So just understand that sits like that. And the last thing we're going to do is the Eaton Cutler Hammer AmpGard. Now, just to discuss the AmpGard has 3 generations from what we would look at, okay? You've got the 1957 and before, which looks like a 11300 Westinghouse size 5 handle, and we've done the size 5 handle before for that. You've got was the 1954 to 2004 version, which has the other handle that's located more in the middle like this, that goes up and down. Now, Westinghouse sold those to Powell. They sold them to all sorts of other people, so it didn't matter what they said on the front. Powell makes a version of this. They use the exact same handle on it. So just understand that this one will say Eaton on it, other ones don't. And there's even, just to let you know, a new load break switch that looks exactly like this also. So don't be afraid to contact us about that. We've seen that about 5 or 6 years ago for the first time also. This one mounts around the 2 little pre-mount tabs that the Eaton device uses, and you do not have to open the low voltage door for this version. So we'll go ahead and turn our power on. We're currently in the closed position, so we're going to trip. And to close. And that's the operation of the 2004 and after Eaton Cutler Hammer AmpGard medium voltage motor starter. If you have questions, we'll open the forum up now. Again, 1-877-472-3389 or info@cbsarcsafe.com. This is again what the backside of the RSA-10A looks like for the new generation of AmpGard motor starters. I'd like to say thank you to everybody for tuning in today. And one more time, any questions, please give us a call at 1-877-472-3389 or email your pictures to us at info@cbsarcsafe.com. Thank you and have a great day.